afternoon, Satnam listeners. Welcome to another episode of Revealing the Diamond with myself, Richie New Rich, and of course, joined with me as always, Tiago Prem.
Satnam.
Hey, Tiago Prem. Welcome again to another Conscious Conversation. Today, as we mentioned last week, we're going to be summarizing the last 16 episodes of Revealing the Diamond, sort of going through the various topics, maybe reflecting a little bit. Pretty cool. For those of you listening in chat on Instagram Live, feel free to leave your questions, and we'll be getting to those throughout the show if we see any. But if not, we'll just be free-flowing, sort of jumping around. There's no set agenda for this podcast. I know I have a few questions sitting on the top of my mind, but why don't you start us off with a few words, Tiago Prem?
Satnam Waheguru. Yeah, we know. Thank you for the correction, Jack Daniels. They go together.
Jack Daniels, by the way, is an Instagram Live listener.
Oh,
in case you're wondering on the podcast what
for those
Tiago
of you
Prem's
on
saying.
iTunes, sorry, I'm living in two little worlds here. Okay, good. We'll get to that question in a second. So, sorry, what was the question you asked me?
I just wanted some opening words to kick off this sort of summary
Yeah.
podcast of Revealing the Diamond.
Yeah, Revealing the Diamond. Wow, what a great pleasure it's been to do these recordings and to talk to different people as I've traveled and taught, and some of the students here at Dharma Temple, the value of what's been offered by just taking the space to really talk about what are we doing here? What are these practices about? And ultimately, what these practices are about is revealing the best version of you. And how do we do that? Well, there's so many ways to do it. And it gives us an opportunity to have a podcast like this to speak about yoga in a way that it's sort of beyond the surface practices and a little more about you and about dealing with some of the things that distract us from the best versions of us. And the reminder is you were born with infinite worth. And you have infinite worth throughout all time. You have infinite worth even now. And you will always have infinite worth. And those were the teachings of Guru Nanak from the line of the Udasi Yogis. And we want to carry those teachings forward as part of this lineage. So one question is... Yogini asked, what are some of the hardest choices you've had to make to align with your Dharma? Well, that's a good question, definitely. The hardest choices for me have been, mostly I struggled with addiction for a lot of my life. I went to treatment when I was like 20 years old and for drugs, and that was a challenging time, but one of the best decisions I made. And then going forward from there, and I spoke about this throughout the Revealing the Diamond podcast, I sort of held on to the drinking thing and marijuana too. I never thought of that as a drug. I always had the mentality that it's a natural thing. It's no big deal. Doesn't really get in the way. And I was processing for most of my life until maybe the last 3 years. I was processing everything from yoga and meditation to what kind of substances I took in, to what kind of food I ate, to everything. I was processing from a place of a dualistic mind. This is good and this is bad. And it's taken a long time to see that it doesn't really function like that. I mean, there are things that are non-negotiables for me that I do not do. And the reason why they're non-negotiables is because they take up so much energetic real estate in my life that I can't show up as the best version of me when I'm partaking in those practices, so they have to go. And being able to understand that, I think that has been the hardest part. Because when you're in duality, you get into this mentality where you go deny, 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 I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that. And you're holding on, white knuckling it, to not do something because it's wrong. And then when you do it, do it and you said you wouldn't, it creates all of this friction and drama. And even if it's, not everybody is really severe alcoholics who are losing their job and stealing and spending their kids' college fund. I mean, it doesn't have to be as severe as that. It could just be you keep making choices that are causing you a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering. And so really I've come to notice over this time that it is really about making space and allowing the best version of you to come through and doing the practices that support that.
Thank you for that question, Yogini Unicorn. Let's just take a look here at the chat. And I just have a follow-up question. You said about making choices that maybe aren't right. What do you do when you're making, I guess it feels like a conscious choice, but almost it's like happening subconsciously and you can't get out of that rhythm? What do you suggest to approach something like that? It may not even be something that detrimental. It may be the driving in the wrong place that always pulls you into the fast food restaurant. It may be going with some friends that are always smoking marijuana, or drinking a six-pack with a game or whatever. Like, what is there a way to just bust out of that, or do you have to reflect on it before you can approach those sort of choices?
Well, I think that's why, answering that question for Yogini Unicorn here on Instagram, I think that's sort of the big challenge, is being able to notice your patterns and then go, okay, this pattern really is not serving me. It's not allowing me to show up as the best version of myself. And then you have to make some shifts. And how you make those shifts and changes, it's not as much an intellectual choice or a dualistic choice. It's more like, that's where the neutral mind of meditation comes into play. And the tough part is that if you don't have any awareness of consciousness or the neutral mind, then it's almost like you have to pass through that experience of duality so that like, okay, I've seen a lot of the challenge, like challenge, until you're like, oh my God, I'm so sick of the challenge, that you start to notice the solution. But at the same time, as we've discussed, the power of the mind, there is experiences where you just see the solution. You think everything is supposed to be perfect all the time. Everything is supposed to be good. I'm not supposed to feel any pain. I'm doing all of these meditation practices. And that's not true either. You have to pass through both. And the idea of a yogi is that when it says a yogi, this appears in many spiritual traditions, from Buddhism to Guru Gobind Singh writes about this in the Rayman Shabad, that when you are experiencing duality, the yogi stands supreme in both, meaning that whether you're facing challenge or solution, you can see them both at the same time. And so, you're saying, oh, okay, well, noticing the pattern and starting to shift the pattern, that's a great start.
So awareness is a great start. And when you've identified something that might not be leading you the best path, that's really a key thing.
Totally. And I think we talked about it in the past. Like, the beginning of the spiritual process is the question, who am I? Like, who am I in relationship to this, pattern that's causing me to feel like really bad about myself, or that's causing me to inflict pain on others, or that's causing me to just feel like uncomfortable in my skin, or that's causing me to say things I don't mean, or whatever it is, And I think an interesting thing I was speaking about in the morning tune-ins over the week was that sort of like this: consciousness is the most valuable commodity that you have. And consciousness, the way that consciousness sort of is a part of your experience, is you become aware. That's the first part of it, And then with awareness, you start to have awareness arises out of intuition, or they go together, right? In order for you to really understand who you are, you have to see beneath the surface. So it's a little deeper, I guess, to experience intuition. So awareness, a little deeper, is intuition. Well, how do you continue to connect to intuition? Well, you continue to connect to intuition through meditation. Well, how are you able to meditate? We talked about this in the programs. It's challenging for people to meditate. There's an aversion to it. There's my mind's too busy. There's a misconception about meditation. Well, you can truly meditate as you start to create a relationship with yourself where you really like yourself. You like to spend time with yourself. And that's where that cycle operates together: awareness, consciousness, intuition, meditation, and then self-love. That's sort of this self-supporting cycle of realization.
That's a good segue to another question from Yogini, or a little higher up in the chat. You might have missed it. Was, what does intuition feel like?
What does intuition feel like? Intuition, it's not so much a feeling as it is just like an internal knowing, something to that effect. You know, like, how do I describe intuition as a feeling? Well, if you have ever had the experience where you go like, I'm going to see so-and-so today, I can just tell. Like, I have that experience here at the center where I go, oh, I think that I may see Allie in class today. Well, I don't get like a sensation, or I don't see anything or anything like that. I just sort of have an internal knowing, and that if I keep up with my meditation, I notice that. And I start noticing it from time to time. It's like you start to notice markers. I think we talked about targets before. It's like, or another example of, it's good to just sort of explain my experiences with intuition or intuitive experiences. It's like, say I'm speaking about something this week and I'm sharing some thoughts on this, and then I go and see a teacher who I haven't seen for a while later on that week. Say I go to LA, or I go to see my friend Tina in Whistler, and they're speaking on the same thing. And you go like, oh, that's weird. What a coincidence. But I think that it's something deeper than that. There's a connection to something beyond the surface that can't logically be explained. And your ability to stay connected to that comes through a meditation practice. That's how it works for me anyways. It isn't like look into my crystal ball. It isn't like a vision. It isn't like I see people's auras. Like I can just experience it by, the more open I get, the more I have shared, connected experiences with the universal consciousness, I guess.
I think one part of intuition for me is recognizing that it's there and being aware that it may pop out of nowhere. You're faced with a decision, and that split second comes in where there's just a little bit of sensitivity around that decision, and maybe you're pulling away, or you're feeling pulled, or you're feeling a bit of conflict or uncertainty. That's where you want to start tuning in. At least that's what I find. It's so difficult to describe it. It's happening on such a subtle thing, but certainly everyone has it. I think the problem is that a lot of people have gone away from it. They haven't ever felt they can trust it yet. It's definitely something that has to be experienced.
Yeah. The beginning of it is the thing where you think of someone and they phone you. That's how you know it exists. You have experiences like that.
Yeah.
And then you start to develop a practice where that's happening a little bit more. And then you start to develop a practice where you don't find yourself in these big blowouts all the time, where you're repeating the same patterns and causing a lot of destruction. It doesn't mean that you don't feel the pain and discomfort anymore. You do feel the pain and the discomfort, but you recognize it for what it is, and that's an intuitive process. And I think, when I said that cycle, that's really a good way to look at it, because there's all these components of consciousness, awareness, intuition, meditation, and concentration. Concentration is the window or the doorway into meditation. If you can't concentrate at all, if you're not doing concentration exercises, it's going to be really challenging for you to do some meditations. And that's why I love Kundalini Yoga. That's why Kundalini Yoga is so effective, because it forces you to pass through the concentration into the experience of meditation, like holding your arm in some compromising position while you're fully breathing and focusing on a meditation. Well, you're not doing anything where you're up and this and now I want to do that and now I mean, you're sitting like meditation, but you're forcing yourself to face some of your mental patterns where it's like, I don't want to do this. This is too hard. Why are we doing this? I don't like this. I'd rather be doing something else, whatever it is. And the yogi, the way that you access the meditative mind or the neutral mind is you're experiencing discomfort and you're experiencing maybe some clarity or a sensation or the mantra on the breath or whatever it is. It's a pretty subtle sensation. It's not like, we deal with sensations a lot. It's like I'm talking to my daughter, I'm sending an email, my phone's lighting up, I'm listening to a song, I'm drinking a cup of tea. Like those things are all going on at the same time. Well, all of a sudden, if it's just like holding your hands up and breathing, it's getting you closer to the experience of a meditation. Maybe you are experiencing meditation while you're doing that. Or maybe you're just learning to concentrate. On the surface, it looks like we're doing the same thing, if you and I are both doing that. And so it's guiding you to a place where you can actually sit and listen.
And so necessary to draw awareness to concentration in the time of 2017, where social media is ablaze, where phones are buzzing all day long, and a notification can send you off into a whirlwind of randomness of I think that as times change faster and faster and that speed of evolution increases, you need to bring the awareness to these ideas of concentration. Maybe it wasn't as necessary 50, 60, 200 years ago, I don't know. But now, ever so great to be aware of this.
Yep. And that's how we're designed. We're designed these incredible beings who have an unlimited capacity to create and to love. And in order for us to do that, we need to keep the whole system functioning properly. It's like how you take care of your phone. They're a mirror of our consciousness. It's like you can't just like get a phone and just fill it up with programs and fill it up with photos and fill it up with text messages and never update it and just expect the phone to function forever. Like, it doesn't work like that. And then the flip side of that is like we have these incredible brains that we only use a small fraction of, and these incredible bodies that are supposed to live way longer than they actually do. And the reason they don't is because we don't deal with the mental clarity component enough in our daily lives. And it's because we don't talk about it. It's like we need to... The essential practices for human health aren't discussed as essential practices for human health as of yet. There's been close ones with some incredible mystics who've really shared how to do it, and then that's been taken and manipulated for power. But basically, it's like you need to learn to breathe properly. You need to learn to eat according to what's going on in the body. If there's too much inflammation, you need to eat a diet that takes the inflammation down. If you're cold all the time, you need to eat a diet that's going to speak to that. And Ayurveda has done a good job from India about that. But we're learning more and more. It's not about let's look at these old paradigms. It's like, okay, there are some good ideas there. Now let's make some new ideas about that. You need to practice generosity. It's essential. Like, we're learning about the function of the brain, that if you're not a generous person, the body starts to close and shrink, And then the big one is dealing with the mind, especially now, and the connection of the mind to the nervous system. Imagine that your nervous system is constantly engaged. Go, 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 firing, 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 firing. Neurons in the brain constantly engaged. And there's no emphasis on relaxation, like actual relaxation, where you sit and don't do anything, or you lie down, and these are not, I'm not talking about you need to take a 2-hour break and have a big nap session or something. I'm talking about 10 minutes a day. Turn everything off, close your eyes, lie down. Set a timer, and then continue on. Like, these are essential practices, and they're all so readily available to us. They're all in the internet. Anybody can access them and use them. So the issue is why aren't we doing it? And the reason why is because this is our first time experiencing all of this in this life. I believe that we've experienced all of this before, technology that's even more advanced than the technology we have now. But a lot of us, especially the people who are taking the time to listen to this, are very advanced. Like, we took an assignment to come back and be involved in a spiritual revolution of awakening, and that's why we're here. And that's why we're going, no, it's not about like go off to a cave or like become some celibate monk, and it's also not about greed and let's get as much as we can and accumulate it, because we all know we can't take it with us. It's like, hey guys, we've got all these incredible technologies, we've got all of this creativity, we've got all of this amazing potential. Let's do something about it. And it's amazing, all the parallels. Like, that's what Satnam is. It's like there is truth everywhere. The challenge and the solution is present everywhere, but you have to learn to see it. And if we can learn to see it, we can access parts of ourselves that haven't been experienced yet in our parents' generation, in our grandparents' generation, and we have all the tools to do it. And so we've done all these technological advancements on the surface, so let's catch up and do the technological advancements underneath the surface.
That's a nice segue to another question I had, just coming off that idea of concentration, dealing with social media, just something a little bit different. You know, I know you didn't really even have a phone like 2 years ago. You weren't really into that. Now you've got the Instagram, you're writing daily, you're doing a podcast with us here, you know, you're working and communicating online and digitally. What's your reflection on this path and process you've taken as far? I mean, just before the show, we were talking about analytics and growth and what does it mean to have followers, and we were saying some different ideas about that and how we felt about that. Maybe you can just spend a few minutes reflecting on that. Because I think it's very relevant for people who are listening. Everyone's dealing with this social media revolution, communicating en masse, and I just think it's important for you to share how you've experienced it and how you use it as a tool.
Yeah. So let's think about the issue of, you know, social media and technology and the global reach through the lens of the challenge and the solution that we're talking about right now. So what often happens is that people get like roped into this becomes their whole life, you know. And when that happens, they have this like dualistic challenge where they're just like, I love social media, it's the best, it's so amazing, I'm just going to be on this thing all of the time, I'm not going to have any boundaries, I'm just going to be all about it, and how many followers I get is going to define me and consume me and become my be all and end all, and there isn't any other way. Well, that's the solution. That's the person seeing the solution all the time. That's the person going, it's all good, it's all good. As long as I have this, it's all good. As long as I have followers, it's all good, it's all good, it's all good. That's a positive mind. And then there's the other one going, oh, we've all gone to hell, and what I remember in my day when I didn't have that, and a spiritual person doesn't use Instagram and Facebook, and then you have these dilemmas. I have to delete my Facebook because I need to get my peace of mind back, and there's this whole trip that's like challenge, 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 a negative mind, negative mind, negative mind. And the interesting thing about it is, you know, Yogi Bhajan had this quote where he said, the purpose of life is to leave something behind that everyone remembers. And social media and all of these tools that we have are neutral. You're going to see them through the lens that you see them, whether you're on the solution side or whether you're on the challenge side. But a masterful person, a teacher, a yogi, whatever you want to call them, can see both. I can see that if I allow how many follows I get and how many people like my post and if I fall into that realm, I can see the amount of discomfort and disconnection that causes me in my life. And I can also see that if I just go on this thing all the time and I don't pay attention to my family and I don't pay attention to my responsibilities, and I can also see how it can really make a negative impact, you know. But if I look at it from the idea that Yogi Bhajan's saying, create something like really great, make a legacy for yourself. And if I do it from the mentality of how can I show up and serve in this life, it's essential that you use this as a tool. It's essential that you make your boundaries based on, like we said, energy management. It's knowing like, well, if I get up in the morning and the first thing I do is check and see how many likes I got on my post from yesterday, it might take me out of my meditative experience in the sweet part of the day where I have the mental clarity to show up. But I also know that there are people who get up in the morning and do that because I'm one of them. I'm not separate from them. So you think, okay, well, I'm going to write some things in the morning or do some morning meditations to connect with those people so that we can support each other to use this as a means to bring more consciousness, to bring more awareness, to bring more meditation, to bring more self-love to the world. That's a positive thing. This is giving us the opportunity to do that. But it is about the person who holds it in their hand. And that's the great blessing of free speech and freedom of expression and having these things. And especially in a time where, you know, you think you have free speech and you think you have democracy, and there are things going on where you're being manipulated. Now the manipulation is coming where in, you know, my grandparents' generation, manipulation was coming through government and was coming through religion. Well, now there's this whole other economic side of it that's operating where it's like big business is telling you exactly where you can do this and do that. You don't even know. They're in control of the government, they're in control of the media, they're in control of the whatever. We've talked about that through these calls. But the beauty of it is that there are people in all walks of life, in the technological realm, in the business realm, in the arts, and all over the place, who understand that we have this ability to create and we have this ability to serve, and that's what we're here to do, and that's how you create your legacy. So you flip the switch from what can I get, how can I benefit, you sacrifice your greed, and you show up and you do whatever it is that you love to do, and you do it as service. And then all of a sudden, prosperity starts to flow. Or you see somebody who's doing like a really amazing at something, and the old way of thinking is to go, oh, I wish I was more like so-and-so, and I'll never be able to do that, and yada, yada, yada. Instead of doing that, if we look at it the way Yogi Bhajan is talking about, then instead of competing with them at all, you just go out and create something even more amazing that's even more serviceful. And we keep doing that. That creates unity. You know, that's how it functions. And that's why the duality of it doesn't work, where we go like, I'm only a capitalist. Well, that doesn't work. I'm only a socialist. Well, that doesn't work either, because people try to manipulate the system. The thing is, the issue is with corruption. And the corruption is when you disconnect from your consciousness, which is, we are one. We are equally important. We are equally incredible and able to create. We are here to serve and connect with each other. And all of these tools, you're starting to see that, and you're seeing the neutrality of it, how you apply yourself. If you apply it through the lens of greed, through the lens of corruption, or if you apply it through the lens of connection, creativity, rather than trying to compete with each other, these are new ideas. Because before, in the old way of thinking, you had to compete to survive. Well, now we're starting to recognize that you have to create to survive. You have to co-create to survive. You have to, you understand, right?
Yeah.
That's where the unity comes from. And the old ways, they don't work, you know? If you make something amazing that everybody wants to do, and if I sit here and go, I could never do that, that's a disservice to humanity. Or if I go, I'm going to make something better than him so that I can get all the money, that's a disservice to humanity, the whole. But if I say, whoa, look what Richard made, I think that I can take that and make something even greater. And then you look at it and go, oh my God, that's amazing. And look at this, and then look at this. And that's evolution. That's how it works. And we just continue to evolve. And if we are the most advanced species on this planet, which is questionable the way we've been behaving over the past hundreds of years, but if we really are the more advanced ones, we can see that in order for us to survive, the evolution of consciousness comes through creativity and service. And we just keep making new ways to connect and new ways to uplift and elevate each other. And that's what Kundalini Yoga does. And that's why Kundalini Yoga was said to be dangerous in the past, because it's like, they're doing something that's making everybody think that they're incredibly creative, and they won't follow the rules. And they, to have a system like that, it's a bit scary for some people. And even people who come to the practice who are used to a more uniform, like, this is what yoga is supposed to look like, they panic. Because it's like, now you've got to sit with your mind. But if you do it, if you sift through that stuff inside your head that tells you that you need to compete and you need to keep everything for you, or you don't measure up, or whatever the trip is that you're on, if you can find a system of practice to deal with that bullshit, everyone benefits. And that's unity. And what is yoga? That's what yoga is. Yoga is union.
See, I got you pretty hyped up on that question. I want to stay on social media just a bit longer. Guys, if you're in the IG chat, please leave your questions for Tiago Prem. He's answering any and all questions today. You've been doing the daily posts on Instagram for a few months now. You've been doing the podcast for a weekly basis now for a few months, and now you've just started doing the daily tune-in, the Dharma Temple tune-in on the Dharma Temple account, which is every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 6:15 Pacific, where you do a 30-minute meditation. You're really getting into it. And I just want to get maybe a little less philosophical, because that was powerful on a big macro scale. But what surprised you in going through this process of sort of creating content, whether it be live, whether it be for podcast consumption? What's just one thing that you've been surprised at that you've seen going through this?
I think the big aha moment, as they say, was that it isn't about like putting on some kind of a show or that it needs to be perfect. It's about, I'm doing this every day anyways. Whether there's 2 people in this room while I'm teaching, or 30 people in this room teaching, or whether I'm traveling to share this stuff, or whether whatever I'm doing. Now all I'm doing is going, okay, well, why does the classroom just have to be on the corner on Main Street? There's great value to these teachings, and it isn't me, it's not my teachings. I show up as a conduit. I do the work that I'm talking about right now to get my own bullshit out of the way. Am I perfect? No. Do I make mistakes? Yes. Am I a human being? Yes. But I'm so passionate about this because, if you talk to somebody who knew me when I was 20 years old and you said, this guy is going to be, he's going to have a meditation and yoga center, and he's going to touch a lot of lives. Every single person in my life, I guarantee you, including my own parents, would be like, you got to be fucking joking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. And for me to stand on the other side of that and look at all of the turmoil that I caused along the way, and there is a lot of it, and it's still surfacing, But for me to look back and then see where I am at now, where I wake up every day and I'm like, I know who I am, and I have this beautiful child who's my greatest teacher, who I get to spend time with, and I have this incredible community around me who is doing the work too. Like, we're doing it together. Like, they're cleaning up their mess, and I see that happening around me, and then I go like, well, what if this stuff really works, which it does, what if we can reach millions of people doing this, and they can do it too? Isn't that what we want? Isn't that the point of what I'm doing here? The point is not so that I can be popular. The point is if we can all see who we are and experience a little bit of healing and show up and be more creative and more serviceful and more loving in our lives, that is the goal of all of this. And so, all I'm doing is exactly what I was doing before, but I'm recording it because I think I'm seeing people who are dealing with eating disorders, who are dealing with addiction, who are dealing with, even with biases that people have, race issues and gender issues, and this practice and the way we talk about it, it's a lifestyle practice. And the cool thing is that it's for everyone. And it doesn't matter if you're flexible or not flexible, or black or white or gay or straight or this or that or religious or an atheist, or it really doesn't matter. It's for you because you're human. And you can make it work for you, and it will work. And the only reason I know is, like I said, if you asked anybody, people are shocked. My mom, I was just visiting with my mom, and she said she ran into the guy who was my high school principal, and then they were standing in line, and my mom said to him, "You look really familiar." And he said, "You look really familiar too." And then they figured out who each other was. And my mom told him, "Oh yeah, my son, he's a vegetarian. He's got a beautiful young daughter. He's got a yoga and meditation center in Vancouver, and he travels all over sharing the teachings." And my mom said he nearly had a heart attack. Oh, and one part of the story I forgot is when he found out who my mom was, he asked if I was still alive. That was the first question. And then he said, "I'm sorry, that was a little off the cuff."
Wow.
And you know what, to be honest, I don't blame the guy. And for me to sit here and look back at my life and see what I'm doing and how it works and how this practice impacts people, it's amazing. And I couldn't do anything else. I don't think I'm qualified to do anything else. I think this is what I'm here to do. And it will work if you apply yourself.
So Tiago Prem was a badass in high school, apparently. I just think it's so important that you're talking about social media, because so much of social media has become, how do I get more followers? And what you're talking about is, how do we create more teachers, not followers? And I think that's an important distinction that we're making.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I loved how you put it. Sorry to interject there, but that's exactly what Yogi Bhajan taught. He said, "I'm not here to gain followers. I'm here to create teachers." And what a great teaching, because he talked so much about technology, and he talked so much about, in this time, what technology is going to do and how all the answers we need are available with the push of a button. Mm-hmm. And he said the only problem with that is it will push all your buttons, and it does. But the follower thing is great. Our teacher Guru Singh, he says, what's the problem with great leaders? They make great followers. And as a great leader, it's like, who cares how many followers you have? If you're making real, genuine content to serve the world, that's what a teacher does. Whether there's 0 people here or not, it's not for show. It's not the yoga show or the whatever show. It's the be the best version of yourself. It sounds so simple, and it's real, and it's true. And isn't that an amazing parallel to the way we operate on social media? It's like, show up as the best version of you, show up to inspire people, be vulnerable, tell people about your pain.
Share your truth, ultimately.
Totally.
I mean, there's too much of trying to share what you're not.
Yeah.
Trying to create a facade and trying to present something, a personal PR. And it's so short-term thinking. It may feel good in the moment, but I just think it's going to leave a lot of people empty. And I think that's why it's important to keep coming back to some of these things that are very relevant for our times. These are the things we're dealing with. But I think we've gone off the rail just slightly. We did attempt to summarize the Revealing the Diamond series here. So I'm just going to go back into some of the titles of the old podcast, and maybe you can just touch on them, and maybe if anyone has any questions in the Instagram Live, now's your chance to put your questions in the chat. The chakra system, we started out with that. Is that really the primary aspect to all this? Is that a starting point? How do you see it in the realm of Revealing the Diamond?
Well, it's a lens. These are all lenses, ways to view, we talked about humanology. This is the study of how to be a human being. And when I say that, what I mean is the best version of yourself. And the chakra system shows you some different components of who you are, and things that may block you from being who you are, and also things that could open you up and magnify who you are. It's a very simple thing. And the beautiful thing about all of this is that it isn't dogmatic. if I explain some of these things and you go, you know what, this is not supporting me to show up as the best version of myself, leave it. There's no kind of like, okay, and now spin around in circles 3 times and then drink this glass of wine and pretend that it's blood and then jump through the hoop and then, wear this colored underwear and then when you die, you'll be eternal. Like, I mean, it isn't like that. It's like, here's a few things that you could try on that would support you being the best version of you and maybe ease some of that like craving and grasping and scheming and issues with self-worth and identity. I mean, isn't that what we want? Like, don't we all want to become so self-aware that we're like, this is me, here I am, and if we're all doing that and supporting each other to do that, that's a great way to be. That's how you raise children. So how come we can't back it up? How come we can tell all the kids to do it, but we can't do it as grown-ups? And that's why Yogi G said, he's like, Planet Earth is a one-room schoolhouse. All the grades are dumped in here together, and they're just waiting for the teachers. And here we are, all of you out there, you're the teachers.
We do have a question on the IG Live. I'm going to read it out. What is your idea about spiritual bypassing? What are some difficulties you encounter, and how do you stay true to yourself?
Yeah, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, spiritual bypassing is sort of, it has to do with this idea that you don't deal with your responsibilities because you're in the upper realm all the time. Like, you just want to be high spiritually, and so you avoid anything that like puts you down in the dirt. And I think that's sort of this is a great question in alignment with what we're talking about here, because we talk about the chakra system as being a lower and upper triangle, or in martial arts, the balancing of heaven and earth. And I was just planning the class for tomorrow's, the lecture for tomorrow's class tomorrow at Dharma Temple, and I was talking about this word brahmacharya that often gets misinterpreted for meaning celibacy because of some of the Hindu teachings that kind of cross into the yoga realm. Brahma means God, and achar means action. And so God is not something outside of you. It's you. It's the best version of you. And achar, action, it means doing action to reveal the best version of you. Now, brahmacharya, the idea is like, if you're having a bunch of sex in the first 25 years of your life, you may sort of get confused about who you are if you do that. That's a real thing.
Sure.
Like, you don't even know who you are yet.
Yeah.
And as part of, I'm not judging anybody, or I'm not saying if you did that, well, then you're bad. It's not that. It's that's a time that you're passing through in your life, and you're going through the challenges and the solutions and trying to sort out who you are, right? But what this practice is a householder's practice, and what it means is that you still do all of your duties. In fact, these practices should allow you to show up in your duties and face any challenge. And if you have to avoid your challenges because you need to feel high, or you need to feel spiritually elated or elevated, and that's it, then it's an imbalanced practice. It's taking action to reveal the best version of you. So taking action to reveal the best version of you in the lower realm, and when I say lower, I don't mean less than, I mean lower, like close to the earth that you walk around on. You take action to reveal the best version of you. You eat foods that reveal the best version of you. You drink clean water that reveals the best version of you. You have consensual sexual relationships. You don't exploit people. You don't treat people like objects. That will help reveal the best version of you. You be creative in your life and in your relationships. That's taking action to reveal the best version of you. This is spiritual living that I'm talking about right now. There's no mention of, what religion you have to do that. It's really unique to your conditions. You connect with others to reveal the best version of you. Who are you spending your time with? If you're spending time with people all the time who make you feel less than, that you'll never measure up, that, and put you in your place, that's keeping you from the best version of you. And then in the upper realms, you do practices that support the best version of you. Sing songs that make you feel elevated and connected to the best version of you. Do meditations that make you feel clear on that. And some of those things you're not going to enjoy doing. That's the challenge and the solution at the same time. It's not feel good all the time. It's keep the mind of the Buddha even in the face of challenges. That's why we do all these crazy exercises that are not a lot of fun, but we keep the mind of the Buddha as we experience it. Because you're going to go through it, man. And to be a good teacher, you're going to be able to go through it, and you're going to come back on the other side and go, hey guys, I went through fucking hell. But I did these practices, and I was able to hold my ground and know who I am, and I want to share them with you. And that's really going to serve people. And so the way that I, keep up with what I'm doing and avoid any sort of spiritual bypassing is that I don't think about rules, and I don't think about right and wrong, and it took me a long time to understand this. All I think about is having a child has made this, like Marley is my greatest teacher, because before that, I was so selfish. Like I was always like, oh, well, how is it going to benefit me? Oh, how many students were in my class? How many followers did I get? Not from Instagram, just in my life. Like, how am I, crafting somebody training? Ram Dass called it somebody training. And then having a child, all of a sudden it was like, oh, it's not about me, actually. Okay, well, how can I support her? And I did a bunch of dumb shit where I wasn't supporting her. Like I went in a business situation. I wasn't serving, and it put a lot of pressure on me, and I wasn't managing the pressure. And then so I was drinking, and then so I was doing things to manage the pressure that aren't yogic things. But it revealed to me, I did air quotes if you're on iTunes listening to this, but it revealed to me something really crucial, and it was that it wasn't about is drinking morally right or wrong. It wasn't about are these people who I'm involved in this business transaction right or wrong. It wasn't about any of that. It was, hey, you know what? You're not showing up as you, and it's going to cause some problems for your daughter. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, wait a minute. I'm not showing up for me. I'm not showing up for her. I'm not showing up for the students. I'm not showing up for my partner. I'm not showing up for this community. I'm not showing up for what's going on in the world. I need to start to change some things in my life so that I can show up, because this is the time to show up. And so how do I stay away from any sort of spiritual bypassing? And it's a great question. I'm so thankful for it. The way that I do is I show up as the best version of me, and I do everything in my life to make sure that I'm living that I'm being my Satnam without rules. I don't call myself a sober person. I just don't drink, I don't call myself, I'm a Sikh of the religious tradition of today. I don't look at it like that. I'm a Sikh in the sense that I'm a student of truth. But, oh, you're a Sikh, you have to wear your turban every day. Well, no, you don't. I just don't subscribe to any of that. I'm learning now that it isn't about rules, that it's about I get up in the morning and I do my Japji, which is a Sikh prayer, and then I do my sadhana, and then I share my meditation, and some of them are from the Buddhist tradition, and then I listen to bands like Minor Threat and Against Me that keep me connected to the part of me that inspired me to do any spiritual work in the first place through punk rock, and I make art, and I watch the football game on Sunday, and I do all the things, and I pay my bills, and I do all of the things in my life, but I'm always doing it through the lens of Tyaga Prem, the best version of myself.
Thank you for that question on Instagram Live. Yes, being tired of the rules, such a fundamental aspect of spirituality. It's the beginning of breaking out into your true self. I liked how you put that. Getting back onto some of these topics, just reviewing what we've gone over in the last few weeks. We talked about the three brains, respecting the mother, can't get you out of my head. Anything there stick out at you and something that you want to mention?
I think we really covered the essential, that last little blurb really covered the essential teachings of Revealing the Diamond. I just wanted to give a shout out once again, the gal who asked that question. Insta Lydia, she said, "Awesome guys, thank you for sharing these videos promoting dialogue, Satnam." Beautiful, thank you, Satnam. I think we really covered in that last little blip what revealing the diamond is, and it means that you live in the world as a person, but without being caught up in practices that take you away from you. You know, and it's really coming to life, these challenge and solution way of giving an analogy for that for people to see, because there is no duality of it. There isn't a right or wrong. There isn't you're a this and I'm a that. That stuff is an illusion. The yogis were very clear on that, and it's making more and more sense to me every day. It's an illusion, and it's a practice of, when we say Satnam, it's a practice of truth, and the truth is being able to be so honest with yourself about whether or not these things you're doing in your life are revealing the real you. And that's what revealing the diamond is. And it's the ability to forgive yourself when you make a mistake. It's the ability to be able to forgive others, but it's also, at the same time, the ability to make boundaries and to say, this doesn't serve me, and no, I'm not doing that, you know. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's strength, you know. It's the ability to really look at your life and go, okay, I can be more open here. I should probably not be as open over here. Oh, I should, you know, and learning to move in a way that's skillful so that you're creating less pain and suffering. Because every time you disconnect from you and you make decisions just to try to appease others or please others, or to get the validation from society, or out of fear of what might happen, or anytime we do that, we think that we're easing the pressure, but we're not. We're creating more pressure and more pressure and more pressure. And eventually that pressure is going to reveal your diamond. And the choice is up to you. How much pressure do you want to pass through? And for me, you know, I've passed through 33 years of intense pressure in my life. Well, I'd maybe take away my first 5 years or so were really delightful. So let's say 27 years of intense pressure I passed through, you know. And if I can be of service to anyone so that they maybe have to go through 20 of those, 15 of those, 10 of those, 5 of those, then I'm going to do everything I can to do that. Because we're all born here with infinite worth. We are all born as diamonds. We are all born as teachers and people who have come here to serve and to take part in this spiritual revolution and awakening. And we can do this. And we have the means and we have the tools, and all we really need to do is recognize that consciousness is the most valuable commodity that we have, and our commitment will reveal that.
I think that's a great way to start closing up this episode. We are getting pretty close to an hour. Thank you so much, everyone who's been tuning in on a weekly basis to Revealing the Diamond with myself and Tiago Prem. Not exactly sure what's happening in the future as far as topics. I'm sure we'll find a way. These, like we said at the beginning of the podcast, were an outline of a book Tiago Prem's been working on, as well as a course I believe he's offered in the past. Speaking of courses, you've got Aquarian Luminosity coming up. Any new things on the horizon there? Anything you want to share about Aquarian Luminosity?
So Aquarian Luminosity, it's a 10-month course. You go 1 weekend per month. And we're doing weekend 1 in Grand Prairie, Alberta. We have a beautiful student up there who has a yoga center called Seva Yoga. And that's at the end of September if you live in that area. Then we're also doing a weekend 1 in October in Calgary at Yoga Passage. So you could check out yogapassage. I think it's .ca. And do it there, or you can do weekend 1 here in Vancouver with us, which is the first weekend in November. And then from there, the following weekends are once a month in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And we're really making these teachings into a leadership training course so that you can go out into your communities and really share this stuff effectively. So if you have questions about it, you can email us at thedharmatemple.com, or just go on the website, thedharmatemple.com. It explains what the training is. I would fully recommend, if you feel inspired by these talks, to get involved and do this. We really want to build a community of strong individuals. Strong individuals build a strong collective, and the world needs that right now desperately. So get signed in for that, and if you have questions, let us know. And I think that's pretty much it. I just want to express so much gratitude for everyone listening to these podcasts and listening to these teachings. A great way to connect, if you're not doing it already, is to follow the Dharma Temple on Instagram. Monday to Thursday at 6:15 in the morning, we have a daily tune-in, so you can do a half-hour meditation with me. Tell your friends, tell your parents, tell anyone who says, I can't meditate, I don't know how. This is the movement, and Instagram is a great platform to do it. And if you don't have Instagram, no problem. Reach out to us. Ask, how can I start doing this practice on my own? We're here for you. We want to support you. We want to do this together.
Thank you, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed these episodes as much as I have been producing them and bringing them to you every week. It's certainly been a blessing, an enjoyable experience. I think we've learned a lot. I think we've definitely improved over the last few months as far as our production, our delivery. And again, we're just so thankful that you've been able to share this experience with us. Do share it with your friends if you think it's valuable. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes if you don't mind. That would be greatly appreciated. And that's all I have to say about that. Any last words, Tiago Prem?
No, I think we're pretty much wrapped up. And stay tuned. We'll still be back next week and with a new vision and a new explanation of where we're going from here. Love you. Sat Nam.
Sat Nam, everyone.